Okay, welcome back, students. Now we're moving into scene 2 of Act 1. And again, we're changing the scenery. That's why it's considered scene 2, but we're still in the first part of the action. So we're still in the exposition, which is great because at this point, what we're going to do is we're going to meet the Capulet household. And specifically in this scene, we are meeting Mr. Capulet and Count Paris. And Count Paris is there, as we know, to ask for Capulet's daughter's hand in marriage, and that happens to be Juliet. And you got to remember that Count is a title, so he is a nobleman. So it's not a bad deal that's being put on the table. It was actually something that was normal during this time period. Ladies, sorry, kind of got the shaft throughout history. But basically, between the families, they would arrange marriages to make sure that the families could prosper financially and, of course, with children. But in this conversation, Capulet believes his daughter's too young, but tells Paris, why don't you try and court her, right? Win her heart. And he happens to be having a party during that evening, and he invites Paris to the party. Right, Romeo finds out about the party and figures out that Rosaline's going to be there. And then Benvolio tells Romeo to go to the party to see how she compares with other women. So now we have stage directions. And I really love how Shakespeare continues the action seamlessly. Because here, Capulet's just making a comment to Count Paris that he and Montague, who have just been admonished by the Prince Escalus of Verona, for their third brawl in the street, he basically says that he and Montague are now both being penalized alike. So no one, basically won that brawl. It was basically they both were punished the same way. But he says, I don't think it's hard for us to keep the peace, and kind of shrugs it off. In Paris, moving into the subject of his visit, says, yes, you are both honorable, but now, Lord, what do you say to my suit? What do you say about me suiting up to marry Juliet? And Capulet says that she's a stranger in the world, right? Obviously a symbol for being a child. She has not seen the change of 14 years. She is only 13 years old. So this is looking at like 7th, 8th, and maybe part of 9th grade. So yes, ladies, that means you at this age would be possibly betrothed to the man that you would be married to for the rest of your life. And he says, well, let 2 more summers wither in their pride. So wait till she's about 15, and then we'll think her ripe to be a bride. Now notice the reference to fruit, again, the flower, the plant. This is a motif that will come up quite often, but it's also kind of a comment on how they see women as a possession and ready basically to give birth. And Paris makes a point of that. Younger than she, our happy mother's maid. So he's saying that even 12, maybe even 11-year-olds are having babies. Yes, that does seem very, very young, but during this time period when life expectancy wasn't very long, families started early. But he says, yes, those who are married so early are marred, almost like a pit bull with a chew toy. He says the earth has swallowed all of his hopes but she. We learn that all of his children are dead. So you have to keep in mind that everything he has lies with Juliet and whoever she marries. But he tells her, right? Or tells Paris, try to win her heart, right? My consent basically only goes along with her consent, right? And he says, look, I'm going to have a party tonight. And there's going to be earth-treading stars. And there'll be a lot of references to the stars in the heavens, all right? Another motif, so keep that in mind. But earth-treading stars, so basically hot suns on the earth will be walking around. So he's saying there's going to be some beautiful ladies at my party, all right? come to my party and make sure that Juliet is the one that you want. So Capulet turns to his servant, right? We get this by stage directions again, and gives him the list of people to invite and leaves. Now here we have an example of prose. The entire play for the most part is written in blank verse, or that unrhymed iambic pentameter. But here you see regular paragraph writing, and that's because Shakespeare uses regular prose to denote the social status of the character. And if you're a servant, you're not educated, so you wouldn't speak as eloquently as someone who is. And so here we learn from the actual servant that he can't seek out the people on the list because he cannot read. And he makes comparisons to different professions, mixing up their tools. It's pretty interesting. But moving on, as he's walking around, who enters but Benvolio and Romeo? And here, because of the stage directions, we're again given this opportune time where the servant runs into learned men. These guys are still arguing about Rosaline, and Romeo's still saying that he's still bound more than a madman. Again, notice this reference to madness. All right, but Romeo's still talking about his broken heart. He's shut up in prison, kept without his food, whipped and tormented. But then again, we have this dash, and it shows that he changes his perspective and notices the servant. And the servant says, hey, can you help us or help me with this list of people? And Romeo goes through and reads. And you'll notice out of all the people that he actually lists here, right, we get a name that's very synonymous with Romeo and Juliet, Mercutio, his best friend. Okay. And he also finds out that Rosaline's going to be there. We're told that Tybalt is also going to be there, who was the one who fought with Benvolio. Okay. So a very interesting mix of people. And Romeo says, well, where is this happening? And they get, the information. But notice how the servant says, if you're not of the house of Montagues, then come crush a cup of wine. So even the servants know, right, that the Montagues are no bueno. And he exits, and Benvolio talks Romeo into attending the affair. And Romeo says, well, I'll go along. No such sight to be shown better than Rosaline, but to rejoice in the splendor of her. Notice again the rhyming couplet at the end, letting the other actors know that it's about their time to come out on stage.